Hello and welcome to my first podcast about my journey through serious illness. Hopefully I can share a few things that might be of help to some people. So 2020, right on lockdown pretty much, I was diagnosed with chronic lymphocytic leukaemia. A few weeks after that I was sent for a CT scan because I had some abdominal discomfort, and they discovered that I had an abdominal aortic aneurysm as well. And not only that, it had been pressing on my ureter probably for years, and it had blocked the drain from my left kidney and shut it down with a condition called hydronephrosis. So, I was a bit anxious, to say the least. The leukemia it's a chronic type, so it progresses quite slowly, but the aneurysm needed sorted pretty quickly, so thankfully I got in pretty quickly. And it's quite a big operation, quite risky, so but I surrendered to it, no problem. I was quite relaxed about it once I was in there, and it all went well. It's a big operation, 10 hours. Woke up and was sent to ICU. I was initially told I'd be in ICU for 2 days and then 7 to 10 days on the ward, but I was only in ICU for a few hours. I think it was overnight, but I was transferred back to the ward in the morning. That's when it got a bit weird and scary. I really don't mean to scare anyone who's going through stuff like this, around hospitals and stuff, but I want to sort of get it out there because I want to show what sort of situations we can make for ourselves, if we don't sort of go with the flow and surrender to it all. So yeah, I was in a bit of pain, but it wasn't as bad as I expected, to be honest. But that wasn't really the problem. It was the environment. I couldn't deal with the environment. I was in a shared room in a ward. There was 5 of us in there, all with serious illnesses. And so I've always been quite sensitive, pick up on vibes and feelings and things, but it was really amplified, with the trauma of the operation and stuff. And also just the busyness, the clutteredness of it all, and not getting much sleep and all the rest of it. So I started fighting the whole situation. I really didn't want to be in there, to put it mildly. And I was resisting and putting myself in the future, desperate to get out. So this was sort of day 5 where it sort of came to a head. It was evening time. I was in bed, sitting up in bed, and then I don't know how this happened. I don't remember falling asleep or waking up or anything, but suddenly I was in a sort of different place. It was similar, but it was a hospital. But the doctors and nurses were sort of wandering around with drinks and with friends and sort of mingling around and laughing, and it was a party, and we the patients were sort of the backdrop to it, some sort of like curiosities or something. It wasn't nasty or anything. They weren't laughing or mocking us or anything. It was just completely normal for them. It was really weird, but it was all like hyper real. And I really thought I was there, but I tried to get to sleep. But whenever I closed my eyes, I was in this nightmare world. It was sort of pleasant in a way. I was like floating, like I was weightless in this like black void or something, and and that felt really nice. But then these sort of horrific images, like moving images, started coming towards me, like, you know, sort of typical extreme horror film stuff, demonic faces and mutilations, and I watched my dog being mutilated, and it was absolutely awful, you know, and I just couldn't deal with it. So I went and got the nurse, and that's sort of back to normal somehow. I don't know how that happened. Well, it was back in the normal hospital sort of environment, and that freaked her right out. You know, she didn't know what to do. So I ended up going for a shower to try and snap myself out of it, and then I said I didn't want to go back in the ward, and she said, well, your obs are good, you know, we'll probably let you out. And she said, why don't you go and sit in our break room, you know, we'll have the kettle and stuff where they all have a break. So I did, but then the fear started rising again, and there was like a big ceiling vent up on the roof, and it was making a weird noise, and it was like music. It was like this ultra negative, like drone music. It was awful. It was just sort of pushing down on me. It was, I don't know how to describe it, but I couldn't take it, and I literally walked out of the hospital and sat in a little garden near the main entrance. Phoned my girlfriend because I thought they were going to let me out, and calmed myself down, and then went back up to the ward. By this time it was shift change over time, and there was a new head nurse, and she didn't want me to go. She said if I discharged myself I might be ineligible for further treatment for this condition. So I walked out again, and sat in the foyer, the big atrium in the hospital with my girlfriend, and waited for the consultant to come in. And luckily he had a look at my obs and observations. He said, yeah, he'd probably be better suited at home, and he prescribed me some painkillers and discharged me. So got home. That was quite rough, you know, in the journey. He was at the pain and with the wound, you know, and the noise and the traffic. That was difficult to deal with. But I got in, sat down the sofa, and then it all came flooding out. Just sobbing, and I couldn't stop sobbing, and then fell asleep, and entered this sort of extremely vivid dream. So, but this time, like, extremely positive, you know, it was like heavenly. It was that amazing. I was back in the hospital, but I was in the atrium. It was completely empty, and I was. It's a big high ceiling with bridges over on different levels to the wards on either side, and I was sort of dancing along on the ground. Reciting this poetry, which you know isn't my thing really at all. I struggle with poetry. Then it sort of built up to these. There's a beautiful crescendo, and each time it did it sort of right underneath the bridge, and the bridge exploded in vines and flowers, and you know it was absolutely amazing. You know, sort of overpoweringly beautiful. I did this several times for all the bridges in there. Then I woke up and I felt loads better, you know. And so yeah, so that's that bit. So yeah, I was healing well. The wound was good. It was no stitches. It was glued. It did a great job on the wound. But then 2 weeks later, I was back in hospital again with a kidney infection. It's a different hospital, a local hospital with a private room this time. So it was much easier. Plus, I think I'd learned my lesson as well, you know, not to try and just go with it and surrender to the situation. But it was easy being in a private room because I wasn't picking up on the shared pain of the other patients. So in the original operation, they'd fitted a stent to try and unblock my ureter, but they'd used some old type of stent with a thread that sort of hangs out of your urethra, and the infection had travelled up that and given me the kidney infection. So I was in there for 7 days, 6 nights on IV antibiotics, which sorted it out. But as I was getting discharged, there was a different urologist. He took the stent out, and he said that he told me that's what caused the infection. He said, they shouldn't be using them. In his words, they put people in ICU. So I tried to get it out there, to try and pass that information on, but hopefully something was done about that. So yeah, it was pretty wild, tough experience, and I was pretty shook up, to be honest. PTSD, anxiety disorder diagnoses. As just after the diagnosis, before the operation, I was seeing somebody, and she moved in with me, to help me out, and it all seemed to sort of be just the right thing to do. It just felt the right thing to do, and she was, I wasn't much fun, I'm sure, but she was invaluable, and especially after the operation, with doing the walking my dog and the chores and cooking and things. But then shortly after, she left me, and it was just too much. It wasn't at a good time either. I was under a different urologist who was wanting to remove my kidney, which I later refused that operation, and it's been fine since. But yeah, I won't go into that. But yeah, I was waiting for test results as well, so it wasn't great timing. But it could have been worse if it was right after the operation. But yeah, but honestly, it was exactly what I needed. It's maybe sounds crazy, but that's the kick up the bum I needed to get me motivated again. I'd been playing the patient, and she was doing most of the work and things, and so that's what I needed to do. I needed to start doing stuff myself. The cooking, walking the dog, and then as soon as I did, as soon as she walked out, I started doing it. Because I had to. Because other people had sort of fallen away, which often happens, I think, with people who are seriously ill. So yeah, I picked up, really quickly, physically and emotionally, and yeah, it was all good. Weirdly, it's some sort of weird co-creation. Sometimes the things that seem bad on the face of it, the whole thing really, I've learned so much from the whole process, and then my girlfriend leaving me like that, it was all, provided that you understand that, and you take that lesson on board and learn from it, then these things can be wonderful teachers. So yeah, and there was another sort of tough thing happened as well with my dog. I took home the dog just a few months before I fell ill. Next racing ground, lovely dog, very loving, and because I was on my own quite a lot, she was invaluable, and she got my attention, after being used in the racing industry. So I think it was mutually beneficial, but as I was getting better, which I'll get to in a minute, from the leukaemia, she fell ill with cancer, osteosarcoma, which is common, especially in big dogs these days. And she only lasted 4 months, and so that was tough as well. But again, it was like meant to be. It was like you know, so the mutual benefits to us both, and almost like she'd taken the cancer off me. And you know, you hear this an awful lot these days, you know, as you know, in humans, our cancer and other modern illnesses, autoimmune disorders and autism and things have gone up. It seems to have, in animals that live with us, particularly dogs, it's followed that trend. You know, there's something empathic going on there. I don't think it's just to do with food or chemical farming or anything like that. I think it's something, you know, something felt. So yeah, so 2.5 years after getting the diagnosis for leukaemia, it had progressed to a point of where I needed treatment. So they offered me a combination therapy, immunotherapy and chemo, which is, you know, I'd heard very good things about it. You know, leukemia used to be, you know, a real sort of stigma word, you know, because of the acute types you used to hear about in the news not long ago. But the treatments have come on a long way, but they gave me all this information with, you know, the side effects, and, you know, there's a A4 booklet about that thick. It was, you know, pretty scary, and I refused the treatment and thought I could, you know, sort myself out. So I contacted a professional herbalist, but you know, I think she'd just started, and it quickly became obvious that she was out of depth with the seriousness of my case, and she gave me quite a bit of bad advice. And during this time, I'd sort of tailed off. You know, I'd lost a lot of weight. I'd lost about 20 kilos, you know, and I'm slim anyway. And my hemoglobin was in the 60s. It's supposed to be like 145, I think, something like that. So yeah, and I thought, well, I've got to go for it. So but as soon as I committed to doing the chemo and the immuno, you know, I was fine with it, really. But as soon as I got the diagnosis, I dived straight into research. You know, what can I do for myself? You know, particularly diet and supplements and things, and you know, and certain practices. So I started taking a variety of things, like very early on. I think the things that probably helped would build my immunity, you know, and you know, help me deal with the cancer through the treatment. I think the main ones are probably turkey tail mushrooms, possibly some other mushrooms, cordyceps, chaga. I was taking reishi as well, I think. Also, like high doses of vitamin D3. A lot of turmeric with black pepper, you know, combined with food, oily food. That's when it's more effective. Lots of other dietary things, fruits. I was eating loads of fruit. Kiwis, pomegranates, which have this anti-angiogenic properties. Angiogenesis is sort of like the formation of new blood systems that feed cancers, even liquid cancers like leukemia. Yeah, I was experimenting with all sorts, you know, smoothies, kale, broccoli sprouts, garlic. The vegetables and things I wasn't as keen on, but so I didn't do as much with those. But the fruits I still have now. You know, I make my own juice as well, which I started back then and still drink. I had green apple, you know, the Granny Smith apple, with lots of ginger, carrot and lemon. I have about 100 mils of that every day, freshly juiced. I drink good quality orange juice every day. In the morning I add a few things to that. I add this is since this is after the treatment that I've started this, but I still think it's a pretty good practice, you know, for boosting immunity and other things. So I have the orange juice. I put 10 grams of creatine in, and a teaspoon of maca root powder, cinnamon powder, ground cloves, cayenne pepper, more turmeric and black pepper. It doesn't sound great, does it? But it's not as bad as it sounds. But I think the cinnamon gives it a nice flavour, sort of overrides the flavours of the other spices. And got into doing cold water therapy, you know, cold showers, wild swimming and wild dipping, which I do a lot of, especially in the summer. I find that easier, you know, even if the water's colder, I find that easier than the cold showers. I find it easier to get present, you know. I think that's the key with going into cold water, you know. If you fight it, just like, you know, when I fought in the hospital, you know, I made it worse. If you fight it going into cold water, you know, everyone tenses up and starts breathing quickly, you know, it's not going to be pleasant if you do that. So I think going into cold water is a great analogy on life. I really do. It's you know, if we breathe into it and just surrender to the flow of it, you know, and feel it all, then it's a whole lot better, you know. And that lesson's one of the key things I learned, you know, from creating this nightmare situation for myself. Whatever that was, I don't know if it was a dream or some sort of lucid dream, which I've never had before, or some sort of psychotic thing, you know. I've heard about this thing called ICU psychosis, but I think that's usually where people have been in ICU for a long time now, but it could be that, or some sort of weird NDE-like crossover, I don't know, but anyway, whatever it was, it taught me a big lesson about going with the flow and not resisting, you know, what is. One thing I forgot to mention, after when I had the kidney infection, when I got out of the hospital, I didn't get another kidney infection, but I was plagued with like a spate of UTIs, which went on for almost 2 years. Eventually I was told it was Pseudomonas infection, which is one of these antibiotic resistant bugs that you sometimes catch in hospitals and at operations. So when I was told it was from a different GP who was really good. She told me it was Pseudomonas. So I thought, I now knew what I was dealing with, and I started researching it, and I found a book called Herbal Antibiotics by Stephen Harrod Booner, which I'd really recommend. It's quite technical, but there could be some, especially these days, as with the resistance to antibiotics. I think it's something we should all be looking at. So I found a treatment which he was quite emphatic about as curing any sort of UTI type thing, you know, bladder, kidney, urethra, you know, cystitis, all those sort of things. And it's 1 part juniper berry tincture to 2 parts Biden's pilosa tincture. Biden's pilosa is sometimes called blackjack. Juniper is really easy to get hold of. Blackjack less so, but you can find it if you look around. I got it from Napier's Herbs in Edinburgh. So I prescribed myself that. I took it for quite a long time, and it cleared the infection pretty quick. And I've never had a UTI since, and that's coming up three years now. So yeah, that's another example of you know, I do believe that some of the other things I was taking helped me, especially with the chemo. immunotherapy was IV. That started off every 2 weeks and then went to every month for 6 months, with stronger doses. And then after a few weeks, the chemo tablets kicked in and they got progressively stronger. And then the chemo tablets continued after the 6 months of immuno for another 6 months. But I didn't have any side effects whatsoever, nothing at all. No hair loss, no appetite loss, no sickness, nothing. And the treatment worked like very quickly. Within 3 months, my blood was back to normal, apart from slightly low lymphocytes, which is normal after going through that treatment. For lymphocytic leukemia. So yeah, there's stuff we can do. If we can keep, the practical stuff like the herbs, the supplements, the diet, the lifestyle, meditation, cold water therapy, mindfulness, all these sort of things to reconnect us, and that's really important. But yeah, and just seeing it for what it is, potentially that it's not necessarily the worst thing that's happened. It could be the best thing. If we learn our lessons, it's really opened me up. I'm still not perfect. I'm still suffer a bit with anxiety, but I'm way better than I was. And yeah, it's opened me up, my self-awareness and spiritually as well. So yeah, I honestly believe it's happening for us, not to us. That's almost like a cliche now, but it's so true. It's if we can keep out of victimhood, if we think it's happening to us, and why me, and that seeing it as some sort of external thing, then the potential is for us to get worse, or at least for us to not get better as quickly. But if, I know it's difficult with something serious, but if we can surrender somewhat, it will make it easier, I promise. But anyway, I'm no expert. I'm not a doctor. It's all self-taught. But I have spent a lot of time, reading, watching videos. There's a lot of stuff out there. There really is. If there's anything specific that I've mentioned that you want me to elaborate on, just please put it in the comments. I'll probably do separate posts, just to clarify, with what I took, and I think the UTI one could be particularly beneficial because it's so common, and it worked really well, especially with one of the, like a superbug type infection, so I imagine it's really good with any type of UTI. So yeah, but yeah, do your own research. We're all different, and I think it's a lot to do with belief. A lot of people get better with down the allopathic medicine route alone, and likewise with the natural route alone. But the combination worked for me. I think probably, consciously I believed it was that I'll be cured by natural remedies, but probably subconsciously I was probably more conditioned into mainstream medicine, and because it was subconscious, I wasn't aware of that, so that's my theory on it anyway. That's why I think the dual approach worked for me, and I guess a lot of people will be similar. I guess we're all conditioned somewhat towards the modern medicine, big pharma stuff, but and you know, and a lot of it works. You know, I'm not sticking up for big pharma, but I'm really not. But a lot of it is analogues of natural compounds anyway. You know, they just synthesize them and then patent them and charge a lot of money for them. But so often you can find these things naturally, you know, for, which may or may not be better, but they'll probably be a whole lot cheaper. But yeah, just go with the flow. Try and go with the flow. It's easier said than done, and it's everyone says it, don't they? But it's so true. It really is. Yeah, and try and follow your passion. Do what you love, and just try and reconnect with nature, and you know, that's my thing really. It always has been, to be honest, but more so, you know, these days. I find a practice that I do quite regularly, especially in the summer. It's like a combined thing. I'm a mountain leader, so I sort of do a lot of you know, guided walks and things, and I do a lot of my own time as well, by myself or with friends. So I do this thing. I've been doing this thing for a few years now, where I sort of do like I walk to a stream, you know, like call them becks, where I'm from, near the Lake District. So I do mindful walking, sort of, you know, sort of slow, sort of rhythmic breathing, you know, sort of feeling as you go. You know, walk to a location where you can do dry wild swimming. Got there eventually. And then do a bit of breath work and meditation beforehand, some stretches, sort of qigong-like stretches, you know, try and get present, and then go into the cold water, and then maybe do some breath work and meditation in the cold water, or you know, whatever you like. But and so I find all those combined, you know, really powerful. They're very, very beneficial for me, and I would quite like to sort of incorporate them into my business. But I haven't been doing that much, you know, through my illness. But yeah, I've started to work again the last sort of 18 months or so. So yeah, that sort of thing really appeals. You know, that if I could do sort of like, you know, therapy walks and. So yeah, but yeah, so anyway, thanks for making it to the end. Sorry if it was a bit heavy at times, but you know, it's all positive, and that's why I'm doing this. So I just, you know, I want to, you know, help people to, you know, share my experiences of what I did right and what I did wrong, you know, what I could have done better. So I would like to make some more videos expanding on this, you know, maybe some other similar stuff. So if you could subscribe and give us a thumbs up, that would be brilliant. You know, try and get me started, you know, in this podcasting thing. It's all very new to me, but even the videography, you know, I'm a photographer, but it's, you know, I do stills, so I'm learning with the video, so it's a little bit amateurish, but yeah, so thanks very much.